Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the podcast today, we have Bharat Kanodia. Welcome, Bharat.
Hey Thomas, how are you? Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Would you like to tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. I am a valuation geek. I am one of the few people in valuations who have valued some of the most interesting and unique assets in the world, including the Brooklyn Bridge, New York, or the Battery Tunnel, or the Atlanta Airport, or Uber, Airbnb, or DoorDash. Um, my biggest crusade nowadays is to educate business owners on what their business is worth. And I've started a YouTube channel for the past few months called What's It Worth? So if you go to YouTube and type in What's It Worth, Bharat, it'll pop up and you can learn about different types of businesses and how to go about valuing them.
I think the YouTube content is excellent, by the way, for what it's worth. So anyone watching who's interested in that topic, I think you should definitely go and check that out. If you've got a mission like that, presumably there are either some misconceptions or, as you say, maybe some education gaps.
Oh, most definitely, Thomas. Every business owner thinks that their business is worth at least £1 million, if not more. And that is seldom the case. So I am cutting out the bullshit, the geek talk in my world. Even though I'm a geek, I recognize when I hear geek talk, and I'm trying to separate from the herd. And instead of talking in jargon that most people wouldn't understand or care to understand, I'm trying to break it down in very simple terms, explain people how valuations work, and most importantly, what levers they can push or pull as a business owner to maximize the business's value. And if you, as you have seen my videos, my videos are fairly simple, short, and information packed.
So would you say probably the number one misconception is the inflation of the value of it?
Um, yeah, I mean, you know, like lately, Tesla is trading at 1700 price to earnings ratio. 1700 price to earnings ratio, let's put that in perspective. What does that mean? That means for every dollar that Tesla adds to its bottom line, investors are paying $1,700 for that $1. Would you say Tesla is overvalued? I don't know. Is 1700 overpriced? I don't know. I'm just asking questions.
Well, it's actually one thing that I'm really interested to get your thoughts on. And I've heard some people talk about companies like tech companies mainly, and about how when they're either pre-revenue or they haven't made any profit, for example, whether or not that's wise to invest in a company like that. And I suppose the pushback is that it's future worth, right? So you're investing in the company because of what it's potentially going to be worth in the future. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, yes. And I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm saying that's the case, that people are investing in those companies and maybe the prices are inflated because people are overestimating their future's worth.
Mm.
Let's take Tesla. I think it's a great company. I'm not trying to talk down Tesla. I mean, I've used the product. It's a great product. I mean, that's one of the few car companies that's, I feel, going places.
Mhm.
But is it worth 1700 price to earnings ratio? I don't know. I also laugh when analysts are giving Elon Musk a hard time when he is not making his earnings projections or estimates. Most of these analysts, they don't know anything. They're just sitting out of their office in New York in their ivory tower, and they've never run a business themselves. They're just a bunch of geeks. So they have no idea what it takes to run a business or run a company. Tesla is a auto company. It's not a tech company. There's a big difference between Tesla and Zoom. You can scale Zoom easily relative to Tesla because to scale a software or to scale a tech company, you need a whole different set of infrastructure. Versus if you want to scale Tesla, you need a whole different set of infrastructure. You need to buy more land. You need to build more plants. You need to hire more staff. You need to train them. Pillars are made of cement and steel. Cement takes so much time to cure. There's nothing Elon Musk or Wall Street can do about that timing. So for them to compare Tesla to a tech company, that just tells me how ignorant many of these analysts are. And also for the market to be trading Tesla at 1700 price to earnings ratio, that also tells me how ignorant investors are.
Yeah.
So that's why I enjoy my work and I enjoy educating people, because even the analysts or the investors, neither of them have any idea what a valuation is or how valuations work or what a reasonable valuation is.
Is there any Warren Buffett influence for you? Because it makes me, what you just said makes me think about Warren Buffett's position on buying shares. For example, he says that you should buy shares as if you are buying the whole company, because you value the whole company, and then rather than speculating, I think that position is. Have you? And he says about value investing. Do you subscribe to that notion?
I agree. I mean, recently, many of my friends and colleagues have been breaking my balls about not investing in Bitcoin. And I'm not investing in Bitcoin is like, I don't know what I'm getting. What if the internet goes down one day? Right? I mean, the strangest things can happen, right? Could you imagine being in your house stuck in your house for the last 10 months? Hey, anything can happen. What if the internet goes down? What happens to my money then? And what am I getting when I put in 10, 50, 100,000 in Bitcoin? What am I getting? A code? If I invest in gold or silver, at least I'm getting access to something, right? So I couldn't agree with Warren Buffett more that, yeah, you want to buy things, but you can't be just buying things thinking that in 2 days from now, another schmuck is going to buy it for more money. Well, that's how inflation and that's how bubbles occur.
I would presume that's the issue with Tesla as well, right? So people are buying with the anticipation that they can perhaps sell to someone else at a higher amount.
There's something called the feedback loop sometimes, right? If somebody starts to do something, everybody's like, oh, that's cool, let's do that. And people have no idea, right? There's this, I watched this show on Disney Plus called Brain Games. If you ever get a chance, it's a fabulous show. And that one, what they did was they made one guy stand in the middle of Las Vegas, okay? And next to him, it says the line starts here. And this one guy is standing there. Why is he standing there? Nobody has any idea. Somebody comes and asks him, hey, why are you standing there? He's like, I don't know. Somebody told me to stand here. Okay. So one guy becomes two guys becomes three guys becomes 10 guys, and so on and so forth. And it all of a sudden becomes a line of 200 people. And none of them have any idea why they're standing there. This is a feedback loop. This is Tesla. This is Bitcoin. People have no idea why they're investing, but hey, Thomas is making money on it, so why not I?
Funny. It's an amazing point, but at the same time, it's quite comical as well, I suppose, in a dark way. So you mentioned the differences between Tesla and tech, and how that varies. How much does valuation vary by industry, generally speaking?
Oh, very much. And more than industry, I think valuation really varies based on business model. So, for example, I'm working with this one company here in San Francisco. They're not very big, but they're going places. Right now, they have about $10 million in revenue. And out of the $10 million, $2 million is SaaS revenue, which is monthly recurring revenue, and $8 million is services revenue. So I was trying to explain to them, they came to me for valuation advice, and I explained to them that, look, I understand you're doing well. You have 8 million that is based on services revenue. I can give you maximum 2x on that 8 million. Okay, so that's say 16 million. I can give you 10x on the 2 million because it's a monthly recurring revenue. So 10x times 2, right? 20 million plus 8 million times 2, 16 million. So 20 plus 16, 36 million. I said, your company is probably worth about 36 million. They said, okay, great. I'm like, now you take that 8 million, that services revenue, and you transfer that over to SaaS revenue. Somehow you change your business model, even if you have to take a hit on your revenue. So instead of 8 million, you make that revenue 5 million to convince your customers to make it a monthly recurring fee. So instead of 8 million, that becomes 5. 5 plus 2, that's 7. Now 7 times 10, 70 million. You just double the value of your company. I'm sorry, that's just maybe too many numbers too fast.
No,
so,
no, I was just about to say, just purely based on the business model, right?
Just business model. That's it. And buyers and companies that are worth a lot of money are only worth a lot of money for 2 reasons. 2 reasons only. And Thomas, if anybody tells you otherwise, call bullshit on it. 1, buyers and investors want consistent cash flow. SaaS cash flow, or the monthly recurring revenue, that's consistent cash flow. That's why it gets 10x. And 2, buyers and investors don't want to do anything to enjoy that consistent cash flow. They want to sit on their butt and enjoy that money. That's it. There's no rocket science to it. So the closer and closer you get to these 2 factors, where you can get consistent revenue and you don't have to do anything to enjoy that revenue, you have a high valuation. Rest is all BS. You can talk about, 1,400 factors. Oh, this premium and that premium and this margin, that project. Yeah, those are all smoke and mirrors, right? I'm just talking to you straight that, this is what you got to do to get a high valuation, and basically focus on your business model. The more you can make your business model into a subscription based of somehow instead of a revenue share, the better it is for valuations. Now, you may have to take a cut on your cash flow, I understand. But valuation wise, it's going to give you a higher valuation if you have a consistent cash flow.
So if you have an outcome of perhaps selling, or would you say taking it public, then that would be the ideal time to switch to that model or prioritize that model.
Precisely.
Okay.
Now, if you want to run your business as a family business and you want to enjoy that cash flow, then yeah, you want to increase your cash flow. But if you want a high valuation, you want to work on making a subscription-based model or a consistent cash flow model.
There's actually a principle in marketing where they refer to it as continuity. And they basically say that there's almost no business that you can't get continuity on. And, it's encouraged as just a general good business, essentially. So even if you didn't have that end goal, I'd say it's still a good principle to adhere to.
Precisely. Very much.
So there are some people probably, and this is the people that you would be referring to, who perhaps don't know that much about valuation. But they have like a general rule for valuing businesses. So they might say a certain amount times profit, or they might say a year's worth of turnover or something. Is it too much of a simplification to say that there's a general rule for valuing businesses?
No, not at all. Rules of thumb are important. Not everybody needs evaluation. Not everybody needs to hire schmucks like me to get them a valuation. They just want a ballpark. And that is okay. In fact, if you watch my videos, in each of my videos, I'm giving a rule of thumb of different kinds of businesses. But people also need to be careful that they need to recognize that a rule of thumb or a ballpark is exactly that. It is just a rule of thumb, right? It's not applicable to everything, right? It's not applicable to all businesses. It's not applicable to maybe their business, right? I mean, I hear this all the time. Oh, Jimmy's dad's cousin sold her business for 5x, so my business has got to be worth at least 7x. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. So if you want to use a rule of thumb, at least use a rule of thumb that's applicable to your business.
So how would you answer if someone, Joe Public were to ask you, how do I know what my business is worth without giving you any actual details to work with? What would you say?
When you go to a bank and you say that I want to buy a house, the first question a banker would ask you is, how much payment can you afford on a monthly basis? How much mortgage payment can you afford?
Mm-hmm.
And based on that mortgage payment, they'll say, okay, you can buy a house for £1,000,000 or 800,000 pounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't talk about the valuation of the house first. They talk about how much mortgage payment you can afford first. So if your business is giving you a certain cash flow, say £10,000 a month, right? Think about how much mortgage, business mortgage, can that business support? And whatever that might be is approximately the value of your business. Generally, as a rule of thumb, it can be anywhere from 3 to 5x on earnings.
Okay. So
again, generally, it's not applicable to every business, but for most businesses.
Okay. Thanks for having the general rule anyway for people. We touched on it slightly, which is how profit essentially, and how you can have a large valuation for businesses which haven't actually got a profit yet. To what degree is profit a factor in valuation?
Profit is important, but when you're talking to venture capital folks, profit is not that important. In valuations generally, this is the secret sauce. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
There are three factors that are most important. Growth, right? How fast is the company growing, or how fast the company can grow? Points you touched before, the future value. Profit, right? How much money, actually cash flow, earnings, or profit the company is making. Or in case of venture capital, how soon it can get to profitability. And three is risk, as in, is the company big or small? Does it have a lot of employees or few employees? Does it have a lot of clients or customers or few customers? It's the risk associated with the company. So growth, profit, and risk. If you are assessing any business or any investment from the lens of these three parameters, you will not go wrong.
Okay. And presumably you can still do okay with either one or two of them. But if you want to really have a solid valuation or value for your business, then all three of them would be the best possible outcome.
3 is ideal, 2 is minimum.
2 is minimum. Okay.
Yeah, if you go with just one, well, then you're just might as well invest in Bitcoin.
Well, we don't want to do that. So I know that we said that it's potentially to sell a business or to take it public. What are the reasons you would want to value a business, excluding those two examples?
Great question. So nobody wakes up one day and says, I'm going to get a business valuation today. Or no owner wakes up and says, oh, I wonder what my business is worth. It doesn't work like that, right? There's a need for why one might ask for evaluation. And usually those needs are they're hoping and expecting or anticipating some kind of a transaction, right? Selling a part of the company or shares of the company or the entire company. Or they might need a valuation for insurance purposes. They want to know, hey, I need to get insurance on this asset or the stadium or this building, and the insurance company is asking me what it's worth. So I got an insurance valuation. Two, you could get a valuation for tax purposes, that you need to file taxes or you need to pay gift or estate taxes of some kind. And the IRS or the tax authority wants to know what it's worth so that you can file taxes appropriately. Or number four is for accounting purposes. If you invested, say, $100 into a company or a business 2 years ago, your accountant or your CPA wants to know, hey, what is that $100 worth today? $100, $100, $200, or $500? Or finally, somebody's suing you and they say that, no, 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 you owe me 10% of that business. Well, 10% of what? So in those cases, you need evaluation.
Okay. That's very interesting. And do you advocate people doing evaluation when they don't have to do those things? So I suppose you laid out the options, but do you think that they'd be better informed if they did do that when they didn't have to?
Do you, Thomas, go to a doctor and get an annual checkup?
I don't personally, but I think it would be wise to.
Okay. Did you have a examination or a test of some kind at the end of every semester?
Yes.
Yeah. Precisely for those reasons. You may want to get a valuation for your business on an annual basis because you might be working on your business or in your business and you have no idea. Have you actually created value, or you're just doing busy work trying to just hustle, right? Unless you know that, hey, I added value this year, you're just sort of running yourself into the ground.
Mm. And
Right.
I would assume that helps with education as well, which is what you're promoting.
Education about your business, evaluation, like same thing. You go to the doctor and the doctor says, you ought to better take care of yourself. Your cholesterol doesn't look good. Your skin is breaking out. Do you have too much stress? You got to improve your lifestyle. Doctor will give you some advice similar to evaluation person. Evaluation person will say, okay, look, your business is worth 25 and you ought to better take care of it. And these are some of the things you can do to make your business worth more. The same way a doctor says, hey, how about cutting out on red meat? Or how about reducing your caffeine intake? Doctor gives you these advice similar to evaluation person can say, hey, look, you want to increase your business's value? These are a couple of things you can tweak and that'll increase your business's value.
And if you're doing it regularly, year on year, you can track the metrics and improve or do more of what's working and less of what doesn't, right?
Precisely.
And I know that we talked about the selling of a business, but how often does the valuation match the selling price of a business?
Almost never. Almost never. When selling or buying a business is very different than buying or selling a house. Because selling or buying a business is not static. A business is a moving object. It's living and breathing. Versus a house is fairly static, right? If you don't use a house for a month or 2 weeks or 2 months, it's not like it's going to dissipate or it's going to destroy itself. Whereas a business, if you don't take care of it for a month or two, it can just implode. So a business is a moving target. That's why valuation and the terms of the deal, right? Seller financing or the non-compete, or if the seller is going to be retained as a partner going forward. There are many terms that go back and forth in a business deal or in a transaction. And those are just as important as the valuation when it comes to a business deal or a business transaction. And it is far different than buying or selling a house. Most people have experienced buying or selling a house and they say, oh, it's similar to buying a business. Far from it.
So do you find, I mean, I'm not sure if you necessarily deal with this type of information, but do you find people get more or less from relative to the valuation?
It depends on the business terms and how well the seller plays with the buyers. See, again, selling a business is far different than selling a house. When you sell your house, you just walk away from it. You don't have to see this buyer or the house ever again. But when you're selling a business, you are um, taking on a long-term partner because you can't just walk away after you're selling a business. The new buyer needs help, at least for a year or two, to make sure the business continues. So you really are coming into a long-term partnership, which is a very, very different thought process.
Mm.
So more than the valuation, it's important that the buyer and seller see eye to eye on the future of the relationship and the future of the business.
I just, in terms of what you said about it's a moving, kind of changing thing relative to the house. Are you aware of, I heard it once and you can let me know whether you think this is true or not, but there's value in people's contact details. So if someone has a list of, let's say, 2,000 customers or something, you can get a certain amount of money for each customer. Is that a thing or is that
Oh,
misconception?
very much, very much. There's a value to everything, right? So there's a value to a customer list. There's a value to a patent. There's a value to a trademark. There's a value to trade secrets. Um, and it really depends on what you're buying. Many a times, all you're really buying is, I don't like the guy. I don't like his business. His business is not profitable, but he's got awesome customers. So I'm going to buy his business just for his customer relationships.
Mm,
And that happens all the time.
interesting.
For example, many a times there are restrictions on liquor licenses in many cities or counties. So instead of trying to get a new liquor license, which is an act of God, people just go buy a pub next door because it comes with a liquor license. So you're really buying that pub not for the pub, but for the liquor license.
Mm.
So it just depends on what the perspective is.
So, I mean, because of the way you've answered the questions, I kind of feel like I've got my list of questions here, and I kind of feel like you have answered some of my questions already because you've given good answers.
I'm
But one
sorry,
of
I'm not
them,
trying to throw you off.
one of them is how many years should a business be trading to get an accurate valuation? But presumably, it would be based on the individual business and what you've alluded to.
Yeah, in an ideal world, it should be at least 3 to 5 years to show some kind of a history.
Hmm.
But that's not even a rule of thumb. That's just a swag. I mean, there are no rules applicable here. Many times a business just takes off
Yeah.
and some guy wants to buy it 6 months later. Well, more power to them.
So, what would you do if someone came to you and wanted to buy a 6-month-old business? What would you look at? The same things as you would for the last 3 to 5 years as a normal company?
I mean, if somebody is looking to buy a business that's been around only for 6 months, I would be looking at, wow, what pre-existing demand are they catering to that business has become so valuable that somebody wants to buy it within 6 months? I would look at that. Or what's so unique about it? What's so unique about the business model? What's so unique about the customers? Or what's so unique about the promoter or the founder that that business has become desirable just within 6 months?
Mm. And so you'd look at, for example, you use the example of a patent. You'd look to see whether something like that existed.
Yeah. I would be looking for that golden nugget. That what's that golden nugget in this business? I mean, why is it gone from zero to so much in 6 months? Once I find that, everything else becomes easy, right? So, as I said, most people in my business are numbers guys. I'm a numbers guy too. I understand numbers, but more than that, I'm trying to find the story behind why somebody wants to buy that business. Once I understand the why, rest is easy. Numbers fall into place.
Hmm. So what do you make of the reality shows around investors like Shark Tank, for example, where they try and value in a very speedy fashion and then make an investment right there and then?
Shark Tank is a good show. I enjoy watching it, and um, they're the investors are always looking at a few things. First thing, they're looking at the entrepreneur. And what they're looking at the entrepreneur, they're looking for really two things. That can this guy deliver, or can this gal deliver whatever he or she is promising? Right? That's it. I mean, can they do what they say they can do? Right? And they're trying to assess that within whatever how many minutes they've got. Two, they're trying to understand that whatever product or whatever service this business or this founder is providing, is there a demand for it? I mean, it's far easier to build a product or service or a company based on something where there's a pre-existing demand. If you have to create a demand, my God, that's an act of God.
Mm.
Right? Number three, they're trying to understand if the company has any kind of traction so far. And by traction, I mean, do they have any kind of revenue? Right? If there's a demand, do they have a product? Do they have revenue? Do they have 50,000, 100,000 revenue at all? Like, okay, that gives them some kind of a taste that, okay, it's a real company. There are real people buying this. Then they're trying to understand that how much is this entrepreneur looking to raise? Are they looking to raise 100,000 or $1 million or $2 million? And how is that raise compared to the revenue that they currently have? Right? So if their revenue currently is zero and they're asking for $2 million, that's a red flag. Like, whoa, dude, why do you need $2 million when your revenue is zero? Now, if their revenue is 200,000 and they're asking for 400,000, oh, now that piques my interest. Okay, all right. So you want 400,000 and you can probably cover the 400,000 within a year or two. All right. Now that piques my interest and I want to listen to you. And then when they're talking about valuation, they really want to understand that, okay, if I invest 400,000 in this company, right? So if the revenue is 200,000 and they're asking for 400,000 raise, how soon can I double my 400,000? That's really the question that they're asking themselves. Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? Or how much more money do I need to put in this company to double my money? Right? When you're playing poker, sometimes you got to double down, right? You can't just get out. You got to put in more money to get your money out.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things that they're considering. And I've watched Shark Tank. In fact, I have a episode coming out on Shark Tank. That was an interesting question, serendipitous of you to ask me that.
Well, that just leads to a whole load of new questions, but are you allowed to talk about it?
Sure, why not? It's not like I work for the CIA.
Please tell me more.
Um, no, really, and that's what they want to know. I mean, the most important thing is they want to know that can the founder deliver, right? I mean, is this person trustworthy? Do I want to work with him? Because look, things go sideways 99% of the time in business, right? But when things go sideways, you want to know if this guy gonna hold up or is this guy gonna buckle? Because they will go sideways. And those are the kind of guys you want to work with.
Mm.
Those are the kind of investors you want to work with, right? When things go sideways, you don't want your investor to call you kicking and screaming. You want your investor to call you saying, hey, what's going on? How can I help? Right? Those are the kind of guys you want to partner with.
Everyone fails. You need to fail as fast and cheap as possible, and then keep going. Something like that. Yeah.
Precisely. As Churchill said, right? Um, failure is not final. Success is not, no, failure is not fatal. Success is not final. It's the courage to continue that counts.
Nice. A lot more succinct than I was. So, other than not being in continuity, what are some of the most common mistakes owners make prior to wanting to value their business?
Most owners build products or services first, and then they try to find a demand for something that they just created. So they're putting the cart before the horse. They first need to create, or I'm sorry, not create, understand the pre-existing demand for or pre-existing demand of the customer, and accordingly create a product or a service, not the other way around.
Mm.
Most times entrepreneurs are trying to find a demand for a solution. They should be looking for a solution for a demand. That's the biggest mistake most people do.
Is that in the context of just succeeding in business? It's like
No, in
solving.
general, in general, that's got to do with valuations, right? I mean, if there's a pre-existing demand for something, your business is going to shoot through the roof,
Mm.
and that's a high valuation. Whereas if the demand doesn't exist and then you're creating the demand, well, that's going to be a very, very slow process. For example, Uber. Well, the demand for taxi cabs already existed. They just switched the business model. That's all they did.
Mm.
They didn't create a taxi cab demand from scratch. People were hiring taxis. They just switched it.
I'd like to ask you a little bit about your story, if you don't mind, because you mentioned a load of, pretty cool companies that you've done valuations for. Is that, do you own the business that does those valuations, or are you, employee, or what's the deal there?
No, I own Veristrat. I mean, I've done valuations for these companies. I mean, living in Silicon Valley, you get access to a lot of good people, a lot of successful investors, and yeah, I mean, through them, through the network, you get to value many of these companies.
So how did that come about, valuing Uber?
Um, so my coffee cup, right? This is Uber. You're looking at it from that perspective. For you, this handle is on the left side. For me, this handle is on the right side. Somebody looking from top, the handle is on the top, right? They see it from the top. Somebody sees it from the bottom. So similarly, a company has different perspective, and valuation depends on your perspective, right? Value is in the eye of the beholder.
Mhm.
So many a times when I'm valuing these companies, I am looking from multiple perspectives, right? Am I valuing this company from an investor's standpoint? Am I valuing this company from a banker's standpoint? Am I valuing this company as a SEC standpoint, or am I valuing this company from an employee standpoint? So many a times I end up valuing a company from an investor's standpoint. And many a times I'm valuing the same company for multiple investors. And each investor might have a different value because value is in the eye of the beholder. So one investor might say Uber is worth 100 billion. One investor might say Uber is worth 80 billion. One investor might say Uber is worth 2 billion. Are they wrong, or are they all right? They're all right because, again, value depends on the perspective, right? For example, um, um, Meryl Streep. Some people like Meryl Streep. Some people don't. Does that make Meryl Streep good or bad or ugly? No, it's just perspective.
So my thinking on valuations is that it would be objective, meaning because you're referring to subjectivity regarding Meryl Streep. Would you say that valuations are actually more subjective?
Oh, they're far subjective. So, valuation is a subjective opinion of value based on objective data. Valuation is a subjective opinion of value based on objective data. So it is a combination of subjectivity, but it stands on the foundation of objectivity.
So if another person who was doing valuations had a look at company A, they might come up with a different valuation than yourself, maybe.
I hope they do, because if they don't, they were probably copying my work. Yeah, they
Good
will.
point.
They most definitely will.
So you got any interesting stories about the companies that you've worked with?
Oh, I have to. I can tell you, but then I'll have to kill you. No,
It
I've
would
just
still be
been.
on the internet, though.
No, I've just been fortunate. I've had some good projects and some good bosses and some good clients, and I have seen many of these companies go from zero to billions of dollars, and it's been quite the ride. And think of me like the guy selling pick and shovel next to a gold mine. It doesn't matter if the miners are making money. I'm just selling pick and shovel. They all need pick and shovel. They all need valuations. Some companies go from a zero to $1 billion. Some company go from a zero to a negative. Doesn't matter. They still all need evaluation. They all still need pick and shovels.
There's a lesson there somewhere, isn't there?
You'll have to dig deeper, but you'll find it.
Is that a mixed metaphor, that one? You enjoy what you do?
I love it. I've been doing it 20 years, and I love it, and I'm good at it.
Good. Glad to hear it. So I referenced the YouTube content. Can you share a bit about your process? Because I think people, if they are content creators, tend to err on the side of maybe not creating content authoritatively enough. But I don't think you suffer from that. So maybe sharing some principles on that would be good.
Was that a compliment? I don't
It's
know.
kind of indirectly flattering you, yeah.
Thank you. Um, Thomas, I won't bullshit you. I'm trying to help people here.
Mm-hmm.
Most people have no idea what the business is worth. 60% of small businesses are owned by people who are baby boomers, and baby boomers are between 55 and 75 years of age. And they all want to retire in the next 5 to 10 years. And if, as a business owner, if you want to retire, you have two options or three options. You can sell your business, or you could give it to the next generation, or you could shut it down. Ideally, you want to sell your business, and most of them have no idea what it's worth, or most of them have no idea how to increase its value. So my channel is really dedicated to business owners just to help them how to increase their business's value. That's all.
I have heard, I'm not sure whether you come across this or not, but I have heard that an awful lot of businesses get shut down because of what you just mentioned, which is there's someone who wants to retire and the family members don't really want the business, the spouse doesn't want the business, and all the value that's been created in the last however many decades that they've been doing it for, it disappears because it doesn't get sold or it doesn't get valued, and it's a massive waste if you think about the time that's gone into that business.
Yeah, and that's precisely why I'm doing what I do, and that's why the authoritativeness that you might hear in my videos is because I'm truly trying to help them. If I give them wishy-washy answers, that doesn't help them.
Well, I always ask at the end or near the end of an episode about your goals. So, what are your business goals, or perhaps Your YouTube goals, if you have any.
My goal is to have a reality show on valuations on Netflix.
That's cool goal. I like that goal.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a reality show on valuations on Netflix or one of the streaming channels.
That's really cool.
And that's going to really help people.
It's a great answer. Probably the best answer that I've heard, actually, because it's what? Thinking big. And they'd be backing it up. One day I'll see you on Netflix and I'll say, I interviewed that guy.
I will have you as my guest.
Good. So where is the best place for people to find you?
Best way to find me is to go to my YouTube channel, What's It Worth? And you can find my email there, or if you can share my email with others in the description, that's fine too. If you have a question about valuations or about your business, feel free to reach out. I'm here to help.
Okay, I will put the link in the description, and I normally put some text on the screen for people if it's embedded somewhere. Would you like to add anything as a final word?
No, I mean, as I said, valuation is really depends on perspective. And there are many ways you can increase your business's value, and there are many things you could do to decrease your business's value. My job is to educate you on what's good and what's bad, just like a doctor. So think of evaluation like a annual health checkup. Sometimes it's scary, but it's good for you in the long run. So just, bite the bullet, do it.
And
And if you need help, doing evaluation, just reach out to me. I will refer you to a valuation expert or a business broker near you.
I
I
was
have a
just about to
vast,
say, do you value UK businesses?
yes, I have a vast network of colleagues I have worked with in UK, and I'd be happy to refer you to somebody I know and trust.
Okay, well, thank you very much for being an excellent guest, and I will speak to you soon.
Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate you having me.
No problem. Bye.
Bye.